doesn't accept a status quo. A status quo is something which makes us complacent. So we can keep running on the treadmill, and we will not have much innovation there. We can go on running on the treadmill day in and day out. We will get fitter, definitely. But if we are running outdoors, the spectrum keeps changing, the scene keeps changing, the nature keeps on showing us new tricks, new sceneries, and we start becoming, living in a plane which is different. We can talk of creativity in various ways. I'd like to start with a story of my family, actually, sister-in-law and her husband, who's a very technical term. Some people say co-brother, some people say brother-in-law. English is a funny language. So actually, he is someone who's married to my sister-in-law, right? So he is actually in Delhi, and he and his wife, they are TV journalists. But what they started many years ago was something so creative that I was astounded. And this is about 15 years ago, before they were married. And they started working together on something which was selling memorabilia from celebrities. They would contact celebrities, and some celebrities were naive enough at that time to part with their, mementos, souvenirs, or their various things that they had collected, and hand them over to Ramona and Juchar, that's their names, and sign them for them. And then they would post these on websites when e-commerce was not really popular, and they would get lots of profits for them, and they would sell them. And even they would go to various shows and occasions and cricket matches and line up to meet someone like Sachin Tendulkar and get that one autograph bat or something. And they would go to places like Paharganj and Chandni Chowk in Delhi and get those old film posters, which everybody now has a fad of placing in their drawing rooms and their living rooms, something like, what was it, Himalay Ki God Mein, that kind of film. And they would put that black and white poster in their drawing room because it was just a fad. And these guys, I mean, the two of them would sell it for great bucks. So these were times when these things were not happening, and to think ahead like that was breaking the mold, being so creative that they really inspired others to also do so. They were featured in a national magazine at that time. Today, one of them is a TV presenter, and the other is a kind of designer, a dress designer and a designer. Purging their vocations, ways of talk a little bit about the experience that I had in government as a creative person. So government is an organization which doesn't allow you to be too creative. It tells you to follow the straight paths, the rules. But when a crisis like COVID comes, government officers have to innovate, and they are innovating. A soldier has to innovate when the bombs start coming from a different direction. He's at the border. He expects the enemy to be in a particular place. But suddenly, if somebody is firing or shooting grenades from somewhere else, the soldier and the captain and the men suddenly have to be innovative, creative, and start acting differently. So there is sometimes an emergency which yields creativity, because suddenly you realize that what we were doing till now is not going to work. That is the case right now with society. And in my case, when I was director of IT, everyone knows about the IT park. I think it was mentioned also. But e-Sampark was something that did not really feature in anybody's list. And e-Sampark was something we set up when people used to go to offices to present their bills or whatever. We set up these single window multi-service centers, which were popular because they delivered 6 or 7 services at that time without too much hassle. So e-Sampark was an idea of creativity in government. And we won the national award for that project because we broke the mold. We made people visit an office which was more like a bank instead of a sarkari daftar with lots of files lying around. And today people don't need to go to e-Sampark centers because they can do it on their mobile. E-commerce or online transactions are possible. Yet 2 lakh people visit e-Sampark centers every month, even today. And 2 lakh transactions are carried out when the lockdown is not there. And this kind of thing yields a lot of hassle-free delivery to people. And not 6 or 7 services, now there are 30 services also offered there, including birth certificates and electricity bill payment and passport applications and whatnot. And the best sign of a project in the government being successful and popular is when politicians start demanding that please open another one in my sector or my area, and that is the case today. So I think that certificate from the public is something. Also meeting old people who say, "Beta, aapne banaya tha wahi Sampark Center," and then they kind of spoil my hair with their Ashirwad. So that really makes me feel good. Also, something that I feel very strongly about, just continuing one more point on government. I was DC Panchkula a few years ago, and I managed to start something called Adar Samman, which you mentioned. Adar Samman is something which meant that old people should not stand in a queue, and they should be given preference, and they should be attended to like as if they are, guests at home. So somebody should go to them, Uncle Aiye, and help them to fill up a form and give them a glass of water, make them sit down. Already they're hassled and little pressurized when they visit a government office. So make them feel a little better. Other Samman, just respect. And that made lives easier. It still continues in Panchkula. Very happy to see that. So a lot of creativity comes from an attitude of wanting to benefit people by showing a little friendly face, a little humane face. And companies which you represent, entrepreneurs mostly who are tuning in, I see a lot of them now. A lot of entrepreneurs, if they think in terms of how can I benefit society at the same time as benefit my own company, that is probably going to help them a lot. So the way to do that is probably by just trying to trying to think of win-win ways to make society uh, carry out its lives a little more easily. One of the ways that I heard of an entrepreneur starting was by picking up books from one house and delivering them to another house. That's a very simple thing. He started this idea about 10 years ago, and he said that I have 100 books lying at my home, which I don't need anymore and I don't read anymore. So why can't, and I have 50 books on my list which I want to read. So why don't we all place those books on a list? And this e-com site and this facility would pick up these books and share them with others, and you would pay a little for the service and get those old books from there. An idea which really was ahead of its time even then. And my favorite story of innovation and creativity was this young lady who could not get out of bed in the morning because she reminds me of someone in my life also who just hits the snooze button about 100 times before getting up. So the alarm keeps ringing and snooze, 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 snooze. So she just could not. And then she invented a device which actually used to, after 3 snooze alarms, it would actually start moving off the table and not break, but would walk away towards the window. And in winters, to get out of your quilt to switch off something like that is a terror of a moment. But she knew at night before putting that facility on her alarm clock that she wanted it. So when she got up in the morning, she would probably be very grumpy about it. But by the time she picked it up from near the window in the winter, her sleep was gone. So she did that for herself. Creative thinking has no limits. Where does it stem from? It stems from attitude. And it stems from a mindset of wanting to be better than we are. And more and better means that I am not complacent with what I have. It's not that I'm running after revenue only. I'm running after ideas. Ideas are generated when our minds are looking for ideas. We're not complacent in the fact that we have everything. Before the virus, we were all a bit complacent, by the way. If the divine force saw us and said that you guys are getting a bit complacent, right? So let me give you a little shake up. I wouldn't blame the divine for doing that. And although we feel very bad about what has happened and we've lost a lot of lives, but I think we were getting a bit complacent, especially those who were in comfort zones. Many people are poor and not in comfort zones ever. But I think we were cruising along a little bit too much. We were not really thinking of how we can improve ourselves and the environment and the world and nature and empathize with others. So this crisis has led us to think of others, has led us to think of families and health and wellness and meditation and mindfulness, these kinds of things which we ignored. In the last 20 years, I wrote in a column, I write in the Hindustan Times, a fortnightly column. So I wrote that mankind has not exactly covered itself with glory in the last 20 years. If you look at 2000 to 2020, the environment degraded a lot. Our society degraded a lot. We became more screen animals than spending time with our families. And we really, really degraded in many ways. We improved also. I'm not saying we were only stagnating or declining. There were many things which came up which were beautiful and wonderful. We could not have had these Zoom calls if the crisis had taken place 20 years ago. Today, our technology is fantastic. We are able to do this. So we wouldn't have been talking about creativity. We would have just waiting for the lockdown to be completely over. So what has happened is that creativity has necessarily come upon us, and we have to now innovate and create in a different mindset. I was at another webinar, and just give me a second. Just my apologies. I wasn't going to look at my notes, but there was a door which was banging and banging because of wind. So I had to get up and creatively go and take care of it. So what I was saying was that we have to think in terms of how we can improve our lifestyles, improve our beings, improve our companies, improve the ways in which we work and our organizations. So let's look at work culture. In this other webinar, which I was talking about, we were talking about the fact that perhaps coffee machines and common photostat machines and printers, which are there in the aisle or somewhere, which become a kind of place of conversation among employees. And I have also worked in the corporate sector for a couple of years on a break from the government. And we used to use these times to catch up and do a lot of things. So these people were scared in that webinar that this will never happen again. Well, I'm not that scared, and I feel that we will be able to meet people, talk to people, hug people once again. Why should we be so terrified that we'll never be able to do that again? That's very short-sighted and short-minded, if I may say so. However, work culture has to be such that not only technology but human experiences, they coexist. So can we be creative enough to make sure that while my employees are totally tech savvy and into technology, we are also enabling them to be human beings who care and empathize with colleagues, with juniors, with clients, with, let's say, in the case of a school, with parents of children. Can we be like that? Can we wed technology and human experiences in a creative way? So people tend to go overboard with one thing. And we know that WhatsApp joke which says that, okay, guys, let's meet up in the evening and stare at our phones. That kind of life is basically falling prey to something which should only be a facilitator. So creativity in your organization would mean that you necessarily tell people that this is the time when we are just going to do gupshup. We're just going to chat. We are just going to ideate, or we are just going to, have a laugh. And those offsites which companies have once a year, they actually take place on a weekly or fortnightly basis in a mini format within the premises once you're back to office. So why not ideate and exchange and share and interact in a way that everybody suddenly comes up with ideas and ways of thinking which you never thought possible. So the most quiet and introvertish employee of your organization may actually come up with something which will astound you. So why don't we actually start, supposing you have a pizza delivery kind of organization, or even a restaurant which makes great pizzas and then delivers them. And then somebody says, so why don't we, along with the pizza, send along a kind of little gift with every pizza? And that gift is like some kind of psychedelic light or some kind of pen which goes like this, which costs you only 20 or 40 or 60 rupees. But the kid who gets it is delighted. So he says, oh, with this company, I get a pizza as well as I get a kind of, a little thing which the kid loves. So things which basically are not as per the rule. And a little story will illustrate what I mean. There was this child who went with his mother to a piano concert. Now, in Europe, when I read today that Berlin has opened up social distancing opera houses. where the capacity has been cut down to 1/3 of what it was because of distancing. That's not a good sign. But this opera house was full, and people were sitting next to each other and rubbing shoulders, as used to happen and will happen again. And this young child and his mom were sitting quietly. When the mom suddenly, because she wants him to be quiet because children are actually not allowed in these concerts, and she thinks that he'll go unnoticed, she spots a friend. So she gets up and says, "Don't get up." And she goes up to this friend, but the child, being a child, has to get up. And she's chatting with her friend. The child goes backstage and sees something. He's about 5 years or 7 years old, sees something with a red light which says actually no admission. And he, of course, goes inside that no admission door. And the child, 5 or 7 years, whatever he is, goes and sits over there. And very soon the curtain opens, and the pianist, or whose name is actually Paderewski, a Polish pianist, is a real story. The Polish pianist Paderewski, who actually became the Prime Minister of Poland later, is about to perform. And the curtain opens, and this 7-year-old child is sitting there and playing the piano. And the mother is looking, where is my child? And suddenly she spots him on the stage in front of 500 people. Now, this is a moment of bravado by the child. The child is not scared, fearless, goes to the stage, and Paderewski comes and starts playing along with the child, and the child stays there throughout the performance, and people love it even more than had Paderewski been alone. Now, this child becomes famous, and the mother becomes famous also, although initially she's aghast at what has the child done. So Paderewski goes on to become the prime minister, not because of this, but whatever qualities he had. The point is, when this child went onto the stage, the child had no fear of failure. The child had no fear of rejection or no fear of humiliation. The mother had all these fears because the mother is old enough to know fear. The child is young enough to be fearless. If you understand what I mean is, we accumulate fears as we grow older. We accumulate fears as we become wiser, so to say. As we become more experienced, we accumulate more fears. So when we shed our inhibitions, when we shed our fears for a moment, we will think like no man has thought before. I mean, going onto the stage when someone like that is to play, you and I will not do it. But a child who knows no fear can do it. And another child will also go. We have a toddler school, by the way, my wife runs it. And whenever we have an annual function, one child from some student's sister or brother who's 2-year-old will always go onto the stage, zabardasti, with the parents running after it. But that becomes even more entertaining than the normal course of things. So can we somehow, as 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 year olds, 80, 90, whatever, can we become childlike? Childish and childlike are two different things. So being childish means that we are talking immaturely, but being childlike means that we shun and shed our fears and enjoy the joy of what we're doing. So if we can become childlike in our glee and our mirth and our happiness at what we are doing, and then take that joy into our ideation, that I can do something so drastically different from everybody else that I can actually be a champion of that cause. Anybody who's done anything drastically different could not have thought like a mature person at that time. His sense and his wisdom had to take leave of him for a minute because he did something so bizarre. Virender Sehwag comes to mind, and I'm a cricket, let's say, follower, let's say, writer, whatever I am. The point is, Sehwag is someone who did not really think with his brains. He had brains, but he thought with his heart. And he would hit sixes when he was on 295. 295 to 301, hitting a six, 1 in a million chance. He would hit the first ball of a test match for six because that fear and that worry was not there. The bowler would not expect it, and he would go ahead. How can companies, how can you be as fearless and creative as Sehwag or as the young child who went onto the stage? Probably not as much, but probably a little bit as that. So Google and IBM would tell their Google especially tells their people that, okay, this half day is your ideation time. And when do the best ideas come to you, actually, if you think of it? They probably came when you were having a walk or in the car or waiting for someone. Actually, when we're waiting for someone is the best time to ideate, but we are impatient. And we are impatient and impatient, especially with the spouse. We're like, kahan gaya ya kahan gayi type of thing. So we have to basically use these moments, offline moments, to ideate. In the shower, in wherever, that is the time to actually think differently and drastically. And then you cannot sit on your laurels either. You cannot think that, okay, now I've thought of all the ideas I had. Now I'm going to start up my company and this is my plan for the next 3 years. Cannot be like that. It has to be on the job learning. A startup which starts with a great idea suddenly finds in 3 months that it wasn't such a great idea, or finds that it was an even better idea than we thought. Or with this little tweaking or little bit of subtle change, it becomes a better idea. So you have to be creative on the go. It is not being creative at the outset that matters so much. It is being creative in the process. And Kanika, please stop me when my 35 minutes or whatever are over, right? You will? Yeah. Okay. So my point to you is that being creative is not a one-time exercise. Being creative is not a young person's exercise or a childish exercise, childlike exercise. It is an exercise or an activity which has to stay with you throughout. And you keep thinking, why is this particular painting here? Can I put it somewhere else? Or not being overdoing things also, but can I shift this to some other place? There are people like that. At home also you'll find someone like that. You keep changing things around. And someone else who wants things in exactly the same place for the next 40 years, which is also fine. Your comfort zone is also important. You want the same pillow, you want the same place, you want the same table, you want the same lighting. However, sometimes you change your zone. So I, for example, have webinars nowadays. I have at my own home, I have 3 places where I sit, not one place. Why? Because if I have a webinar in the same place every day, I look at myself, I say, oh no, same painting, same this, same that. So it may be a small home, you change your angle, you change your circumstances, you change your whatever you can, and you create something new. You change your content. As a public speaker, I must tell you that I take my speaking seriously. And I don't go and talk on creativity in the same manner that I would have talked about creativity last week or last month or last year. I have to bring in different stories. I have to bring in something different. Why? Because I have to challenge myself. I have to challenge my own brain and mind that Vivek, this is not going to do. You are bored of this story. Kanika has not heard me before. You may not have heard me before on this topic, but I have to challenge myself. Even in your journey as an entrepreneur, you're doing superbly well. However, you want to challenge yourself. I'll tell you someone who's a little complacent but doing very well, and you can learn from him also. There is a lassi wala in Jaipur. You know, Jaipur is not really known for lassi, it's known for dal bati churma and very spicy food. How Punjab is known and Haryana is known for lassi. But in Jaipur, you have this great lassi wala, and everybody comes from near and far to have his lassi. And this man closes shop at 3 p.m. Starts at 8 in the morning, and his lassis are sold, and 3 p.m. is when he closes. From 3 p.m. to midnight, he could have had 5 times or 4 times more customers. Why? Because more people come in the evenings, he's popular. He closes and goes because the next 6 shops who are imitators of this lassi wala, their lassi start being sold at 3 p.m. Because till he's open, nobody goes to them. When they go to them, they go, no, because this guy is closed, now we have to go to them, and they're not bad, they're good. This chap can actually earn double the revenue, but he is complacent in his quality. I have no argument with him. He's happy, he's comfortable. That old story about an American businessman going to a fisherman and saying, why don't you do this and that? And still he's going to be catching fish sitting next to the river. So it's fine with me. However, if this lassi wala wants to start home delivery or wants to start a certain flavor of lassi, a Pepsi lassi or something which has never been tried, then he is going to suddenly find himself catapulted into fame and popularity, which is unimaginable. So it's up to you, the young generation. Let's talk of what is that? What's the milk drink that is very popular nowadays? Cavenders, right? Cavenders. So I mean, Cavenders. Their traditional 100-year-old milk house, and the young guy, the grandson or the great grandson, suddenly decides to sell these bottled milkshakes, milk products which are super, and suddenly Cavenders becomes a household name. So there has to be something about thinking differently, which is not the norm, not the rule even. Let's talk of one more story, and then probably because so many people are there, we should have an interaction, and also we can, yeah, maybe another 3 or 4 minutes we can go on. One more story which makes us realize that adversity also brings out opportunity for creativity. Adversity also brings out opportunity for creativity. How? There was this judo master, judo teacher. Judo is a martial art, and this young boy with one arm, he didn't have a left arm. He went to him, sir, I want to learn judo. He looks at him and he wonders how he's going to teach him judo. So he says, okay, I'll teach you judo, but only one move. I can teach you only one move, and teaches him that one move, which is the most difficult move in judo. But only one move, not the others. So this boy keeps telling sir, he says, sir, please teach me another move at least. He said, no, I can't teach you anymore. And then he enters this young boy in a tournament. And this young boy with one arm and one move in judo, he beats his opponent because he's so good at that one move. And he beats his second opponent also. And the quarterfinal comes and he beats the quarterfinalist. And he's amazed that how is he beating these guys with one move? And the semi-finalist is a bit difficult, very good judoka. And this boy, he just somehow wins. The final is a tough ball game, and the referee almost stops the game because that opponent is so powerful that this young boy is almost shattered. But somehow, with that one move, he topples him when in an unguarded moment, that tough opponent loses his guard and loses the match. And then they're on the way back with the trophy because he's won the tournament. And he asks his teacher, he says, how did I win this tournament with one arm and one move? He says, this is one of the most difficult moves in judo which I taught you. And the only way for the opponent to defeat someone who's made this move is by pinning down the left arm. And he doesn't have a left arm. So he says they can't pin you down. So opportunity out of adversity. I mean, that adversity couldn't be worse, having just one. And how this boy becomes, the Karate Kid has a movie, has a similar story, but I don't think it's as drastic as this one. So these are inspirational stories for you. My advice at the end, before we have the interaction, would be that whether you are in corporate life, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you are a solo protagonist, that is being an engineer, a doctor, an architect, a lawyer, a CA, self-employed professional, or you are in the government, wherever you are, your life cannot stagnate with lack of ideas. I'm sure you have great ideas. Also, the risk-taking ability to implement them and to go forth and not worry too much about what people think is important. I've learned this the hard way in my life. I used to be a cricketer, and I always used to think while playing that what will my coach think if I got out early? What will my dad think if I got out early? What will mom think? And I used to get out early because of that. But if we don't worry too much about what people think, then we really bring more creativity, more confidence, more calmness to the table. And my last point to you is that calmness, a calm mind, is more creative than a restless mind. And Kanika and I were talking while discussing this session that meditation will bring calmness. So those of you who don't meditate, I think meditation will improve your intuition also. And intuition is an underrated faculty. It is your sixth sense, and it is something that will come from within. My book is called Finding Success Within. Why I call it that is because I think that a lot of qualities we overlook come from our heart and mind and soul. So it's important for us to be calm, to go within at times, to ideate, to be creative, to think more rationally, calmly, balanced manner. And if we are restless and we are in a tizzy and we are angry and we are worried, it's difficult to be creative at that time. So be at your best by being calm. Paramahansa Yogananda said, be calmly active and actively calm. I love that. Be calmly active and actively calm. Thank you very much for listening. I'm ready for questions.
Wonderful. That was so engaging. I actually lost track of time. So good you pointed it out because all the stories are very, very engaging. So we already have a question and we'll jump into it straight away in the interest of time. So Harshveer Singh has asked a question. His question is, what incident in your life prompted you to turn your mind with a different creative angle in writing your first book, Move On Bunny?
Ashwin, thank you for asking that question. Good to see you here. I became a writer actually in college, and one creative thing I did was to get married to my college. Ina is my wife. She was with me 2 years junior. She was a great fan of my writing actually, and that is what led her to not marry me, but at least initially she wanted to talk to me and meet me and whatever. So I was so. I mean, not so, but I was infrequent writer. Let's say once a year I wrote something, and I left it for the next 15 years of my life, unfortunately, because 12 years maybe, because I was busy with being director IT and this, that, and the other. So I didn't really write much. But then one day, I think she told me, and she kept pegging me on, and I kept pegging myself on. I wrote a piece called All Sorts of Walkers. And when I wrote All Sorts of Walkers, it was about a morning walk and what kinds of people come to the park, and husband and wives who don't talk to each other, and one person who's always on the phone, and one guy who's always concentrating on something else. So all these kind of people you notice in the park. I wrote this middle. Then I wrote something more humorous, and I realized I have humor in me. I'm not a that's a funny kind of person. I'm pretty serious about life, but I could write humorous stuff, and that brought out the best in me. I still think I write humor better than serious stuff. I write a lot of serious stuff now, but I started writing. So this novel Move On Bunny came out of that humorous bent of mine. It's a rom-com kind of thing. It's funny, hopefully. And Move On Bunny is about Bunny Kapoor who keeps moving on from one city to another, one job to another, one relationship to another. Not ideal, but he's a funny guy. And then I wrote Dubeji Bounces Back, which was also a funny book in the sense that Dubeji was actually a youngster called Raghav Dubey, who people tease by calling Dubeji. And Raghav Dubey would get into all kinds of silly situations and bounce back from them. And human beings get into all kinds of silly situations and have to bounce back. So Finding Success Within is my third book, and launched just before the lockdown, just in time. So I could kind of have a launch actually on 8th March, which was probably one of the last gatherings held in Chandigarh before the lockdown. So I was lucky that that went off without masks and without sanitizers and without anything else. So we had a great time there. Thank you.
Interesting. We're waiting. We're looking for more questions. Somebody raised a hand. I think Harjinder Chima ji raised his. Titanshu Chandel has raised his hand. Can you please type your question in the chat box? So
I'll take him on. Let's try the video also.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Hi, Jitanshu. Yeah.
Hi. A very engaging talk by Mr. Vivek. Thank you so much for those insights on a very enlightening topic. Belonging to the same domain as such, from the speaker's perspective, I would like to ask you this question. We all begin with a lot of creativity when we go out with our startups, when we actually turn out to become entrepreneurs. But gradually, when we enter the market and when we start seeing the dynamics of economics play its game, when we have to actually adjust to the norms of the market, that at some point I have personally observed, and when I'm speaking to certain young entrepreneurs, they come up with this question. So till what point do we maintain creativity? Because after a certain time, we have to become a little complacent, adjusting to the market demands. So what advice would you give to these people? And question number two, I was hearing you about a few years back at Karnal. You were speaking in a college in Karnal. And there you had spoken about a very important point, women entrepreneurship. And there I came to know the depth of your understanding about women entrepreneurship. Please highlight how can women entrepreneurship, especially in the rural areas, become one of the leading forces to bring our rural sector to the forefront. These are my two questions. Please, if you could answer them.
Thank you, Ditanshu. Very good questions. Firstly, congratulations on being so creative in asking questions. And secondly, congratulations on writing Ditanshu with a capital I after J, which makes you very creative because you have two capital letters in your first name. So I'm just joking. The thing is that Karnal first, let me take that question. I don't remember speaking on women entrepreneurship at Karnal, maybe Kurukshetra, but anyway, I've spoken at many places.
Yeah,
Women,
somewhere.
sorry?
So one of the two places, I don't exactly remember.
I think it's Kurukshetra, yeah. So I think that women are actually, and men have to admit that, and I know there are women in this actually supposed to women chapter of TIE, actually. I think men have to admit that women are more multidimensional. And emotions, especially, are a great asset that women have. And their ability to empathize is greater. Women entrepreneurs have a great opportunity in India, especially because their empathy levels will lead them to think up ideas which men or champions of companies led by men may not even think of. So, ideating in a way that is wedded to their empathy is something that will make them more successful. Of course, other women entrepreneurs may be thinking of the same thing, but then there are so many things in entrepreneurship, and I speak in various fora on entrepreneurship as well. Three factors, of course, ideation, risk-taking ability, financial support, the three basic prerequisites. And for a youngster, also the parental support. Instead of doing a job for Halifax or whatever, you are basically starting up something called Adu or whatever it is. So you basically have to take the plunge. And for a woman entrepreneur, I think the other skill sets required are the same. Being a champion of your cause, ideating all the time, being a good communicator is also a great asset to have. I think these are the things. And when you mentioned that when we start off, the second question, the first question actually was, how do we keep creative? We start off creatively and later we lose our creativity. I think it happens to most of us in our jobs also. If you look at the fact that people who were on day one, they were so enthusiastic about working for whichever company they joined, and after 10 years, they're like, oh yeah, going through the motions. That's not really what life is about. We have to keep challenging ourselves. And because you're in a zone, you have to suddenly think of the bigger picture and come out of that zone into another one. And lane driving is same driving, they say, but in this case, you have to see all the lanes and you have to change lanes and go into a different mode. Although I must share with you a funny story of this young boy who was very, very creative. He was a 7 or 8 year old, and a relay race, so 4 people have to run 100 meters each. So in the school, they had this relay race, and he was the last runner, the fourth one. And the fourth one is supposed to be the Bolt, the Usain Bolt of the team. So the first 3, they ran very well. And this guy was waiting for the baton. He's only a 7-year-old, maybe his first relay, runs very fast. And the coach is there. And all 3 ran well and gave him the baton. And he started running faster than anyone else, but he ran in the wrong direction. So instead of running towards the goal, the finishing point, he runs towards the second base from the third base. And he ran so fast that the coach couldn't catch him. So sometimes we have so much energy and creativity that we destroy our chances. So it is very important for us to not only be creative, but also to be sensible. However, we cannot become routinized, and routinization of our lives have to be avoided. So it's a new word, perhaps, but routinization has to be avoided. This is my two answers. I think now you have a couple of more questions, Kanika. I can't hear you. Kanika?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
We have a question from Ritu now. Her question is, how does one put creativity into corporate work profiles where there are boundaries? So what can one do? And jobs are generally driven by SOPs.
Yeah, so the thing is, Ritu, that you have to firstly try and work for an organization which values creativity. If you cannot do that, and it's not possible for most of us because mostly we have to be in a particular place, a particular company, not only by choice but by circumstances also. There you have to basically, within that limit which is there, you have to get into that as much as possible kind of situation. So I can only compare your situation to mine in the government, and the government doesn't allow creativity, but you can go as far as the government will allow you. So if you can go that much, stretch the limits a little bit without annoying anyone, and maybe you annoy someone once in a while, it's okay, but you go ahead and succeed. You'll become more popular, and just stretch the limits as much as you can. Yeah. The next one.
Kapil Patharia has a very good question. It was actually on my mind as well. He says, you mentioned rightly that we become fearful as we become experienced, mature, and wiser. So, what should we do to make it a habit to live our life childlike?
Atul, yes. Atul, actually, I have found that I found my childlike nature when I started reading, you'll be surprised, started reading scriptures. When I read scriptures and I read deep-rooted meditation-related books, I realized that we take life too seriously. And I decided to take my life less seriously. I resigned from the IAS, by the way, and that is a serious thing to do. But you have to take life a little less drastically than you do, most of us. What is going to happen? What is the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is that you lose your job, you lose your company, you lose your livelihood. Even then, you're alive and your family loves you and some friends love you, and you're okay. You're alive. So the worst thing that you think is likely or possible may not be the worst thing possible. And even if it happens, it's okay. So I think when you take things a little bit less seriously like that, a child knows, and I say this often, you may have heard me say this before, a mother throws up the child of a 1 year or 2 year old child and catches the child, right? The child laughs, doesn't cry, doesn't feel scared. And the mother is never going to drop that child or the father because they know that they have to catch that baby. And the baby is delighted with the little ride up there. We lose our confidence, our courage, because people tell us you should be scared. And society tells us that you should be scared of this. Because that's how we are brought up. That's how we become timid. Now, those who can retain that childlike enthusiasm, at least they will retain some kind of childlikeness. And that childlike enthusiasm you see in people around you. They will play the fool. Some of them will suddenly start cracking jokes or something. Others are too cynical, and I use this too often nowadays. Too cynical, critical, complaining. I have these C's for cynical people. So instead of being caustic like that, if we can spend most of our time becoming more, not saying those cynical things and talking about things which make people happier, like a child does. A child doesn't complain much, except that "Mama, usne mujhe mara ya usne ball utha liya," or something, which is okay, right?
Good. True. DP, we have a hand raised by Pooja Nair. Could you bring her on? Pooja, hi, you can unmute and ask your question.
Yes, go ahead.
Pooja, are you there?
Would you like to maybe type a question if her audio is not working? I'm
Yeah,
so glad to see that we have so many people who are staying on for this Q&A. Maybe I can tell a story if they're waiting, but if you have more questions, I'll be very happy to take them.
yeah. We'll probably wait for her to fix
Kanika,
that.
there is another question by Vikram Kanwar on the chat box. If you could address that, and meanwhile, Pooja can come back here.
We have a question from Vikram. Vikram's question is how to make creativity or innovation a business success. I think I have an innovative product or service, but I do not know if there's a market for it. How do I move ahead? Just being creative and jumping into the market could be quite expensive.
Absolutely. So creativity is not the only thing in life, and we have talked about creativity today. If we had 2 more hours, we could probably have talked about all other factors involved. But you have to be sensible as well. You can't be reckless. You can't be senseless. And creativity coupled with firm-footedness and the right conditions will definitely lead to success. So that bravado and that sense of being Sehwag can only bring you a certain amount of success, obviously. However, without creativity, we will not get far. So go step by step, and sometimes when you feel the conditions are right and ripe and conducive, then go for it. So play according to the situation. If you see a tennis player, he will start banging in his first serve at the time when he feels that the match is under wraps. Otherwise, he's going to go carefully for his first serve, because if the first serve is lost, then the second serve is going to be broken. So you have to basically see your situation. Federer will start hitting aces when he's winning, because he's already winning. So he goes for the aces. And before that, he's more careful. So we have to take risks with caution. So in cricket, we say blend caution with aggression. You blend caution and aggression and creativity.
That's a great answer. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Just check with Pooja if she's back. Okay.
So is this video going to be available later?
Yes.
It will be, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll also share it with a few people. They're asking me to join in earlier. I couldn't share the link with quite a few of them, so we can do that.
We have one more question from Harshveer. He says, can you share something interesting from your latest book?
Yeah, thank you, Harshveer, for promoting my book here. And it's called Finding Success Within 52 Life Skills for Young Indians. And that applies to not so young Indians and to all people in the world, actually. Shiv Kheda has written my foreword, so that's the interesting part of my book. And Shiv Kheda is a great orator, and he also happens to be my distant uncle, so I kind of badgered him into it. But the interesting thing in my book, I think you'll find, is that I've written 2 sections in it, life skills and career skills. And in the career skills, there is something called handling difficult bosses. And just to tell you the interesting bit about it, in the launch, somebody from Odisha was speaking at my launch and saying bosses is difficult for a Bengali or Odisha person. So he was saying buses. So it came out as handling difficult buses. And I regard him so highly. He's such a wonderful orator. And he was, somebody said, sir, buses is, no, I mean superiors. So then he clarified, when he said superiors, everybody understood what he meant. So that chapter, and another lighter moment in that is that there's a young man working with me. His name is Anshuman Arora, and some of you know him from Vibrant Networking Forum, because we have this forum where all these talks and speeches take place, and webinars also. And Anshuman manages that. And he read my book, and he says, sir, one chapter I didn't need to read was handling difficult bosses. I don't know whether he said that to to butter me up, but anyway, he's a smart young lad. Harshveer.
That's amazing. So we have about 4 minutes. Maybe if you have any closing remarks, we'll be happy to hear them. And thereafter, this recording will be available. DP will share it with all the time members and of course with you. So you can also pass it on in the network.
Okay, I'll share a couple of stories with you to end, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then we can break at the end. So one is that, we have to be careful while being creative. And that was mentioned. So we had a foreign minister of India who was to deliver a speech in the United Nations, a forum of the United Nations. And this foreign minister was very creative with the speech, but he forgot his speech in the hotel. And unfortunately for him, he didn't realize he'd forgotten it. And somehow he was talking to someone, he didn't realize anything. And he went to the podium. His assistant also didn't realize that the papers are not there. He started reading out from the Peru foreign minister's speech. And the Peruvian foreign minister had actually obviously something about Peru. But in the first page, the remarks were so generic that the Indian foreign minister didn't realize it at all. So he started reading the Peru minister's speech, and he came to a point where there was something about, so in Peru, we have taken the following steps. And then he kind of panicked. And people were watching, the television recording was on. And so the learning from that is that bring your own speech and don't try to read from the Peruvian foreign minister's speech. The second story I'd like to share with you is something from my own life, and that I've learned that always look for the common man. And the common man is someone who will give you a lot of what they say, dua and good vibes, and he'll give you a lot of accolades for what you've done. So this Golgappa man who stands near Saint Kabir School in Chandigarh, I used to cross him many a time. He's a poor boy man, and he's oldish now. He would stand there with very little income. I could make out a box of Golgappas and a jar of water. I would not be able to stop there and have his Golgappas because my mother told me when I was a boy that don't have this kind of street food and you'll fall ill. So I used to admire him because he would keep smiling and inspire me. And I used to wonder why he smiled so much, and I would really be amazed. And then one day I wrote a middle about him in the Tribune, and I took a cutting of that middle. I said, I wrote about you and I'm an admirer of yours. And he saw my Sarkari Gaadi we used to have red lights at that time before the Supreme Court stopped them. And he was scared of the red light, but I kind of started talking to him, and I even had his Golgappas that day, and I was fine after that. I have not didn't fall ill. And he was a poor man, and he was most cheerful. I was amazed. So I asked him the secret. He said, sir, I don't worry about things. I just go around my life and God will take care of me, and he always takes care, and I have enough to survive, and I'm fine, and my family is happy. So I learned from him a lesson that power, money, and fame are not really what life is about. And life is about inner peace, inner happiness, and being content. So that was an inspiring story.
Wonderfully put. Could not have put it any better. This has been a great session, amazing for me personally, and going by the number of people who've stayed till the very end, I think this has been very well received and everybody has loved it. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us and sharing these amazing stories with TiE. Absolutely grateful as I speak on the behalf of everybody, especially TiE women and TiE Chandigarh in general. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kanika, and thank you, Bibi, and it's been fantastic to be here.